Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. Some of these programs are recorded and some are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown, your host for today's activities. Today, we are presenting Peggy Spear from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. Peggy's topic for today is Black Every Day, and we're anxious to see what that means.
Yeah,
Peggy, we want you to tell us, what does this mean today?
Well, right now, all right, let me pull my screen up. Share. So, Black Every Day is an exhibition that is currently on view in the museum. It opened early June. Gosh, can you believe it's July in a couple of days? So the impetus for this show started back in 2020 when the death of George Floyd happened, and there was a lot of focus on the Black Lives Matter movement. And so a lot of museums took that time to kind of reflect on collecting practices, on the story that the museum is telling. What lens are we learning these stories? How can we tell a broader story? So that really got art curator Kristen Gaylord thinking about ways we can tell the Black American story through our collection. And so she is a white woman, and she worked with this exhibition with a Black woman who is a professor at UNT and an artist herself, on working together to pull photographs from our collection that really tell the Black American story. So when you think of Black history within America, and you think of typically the images you see of Black Americans, what kind of images are those? Typically pictures of civil rights movement.
Yes.
Typically pictures of enslaved people.
Yes, hard workers, poor people.
Yes. Yeah. Violence. The media, you can see in this picture. So these are two pictures. There's three pictures on the wall to kind of set us up. These are two of the three. Basically, we're used to seeing the Black story through the sadness of crime, of violence, of civil rights, or it's always just Martin Luther King. Like there's so few images we typically see. This exhibition is taking a step back. And while those are important histories and stories that we need to know, there's so much more to the Black American life than what the media and what is typically shown to us in institutions, what that exists. So this exhibition is really looking at the complexity of Black life, everyday life for Black Americans. And so while a lot of these themes, apply to every race, it doesn't matter. For the purpose of this exhibition, we're really focusing on what that looks like within the Black community. And so this is it really focusing on the richness of Black culture. And while it's acknowledging the daily reality of discrimination for Black people, that's not what this exhibition is about. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So here we've got, a soldier with his enslaved person behind him that, we don't know. There are some thoughts on what the boy's name was, but we don't have the name. So we've just removed the name. And then here we see a situation that's happening at a police station where, a Black person's in a chokehold. So again, these are unfortunately the type of pictures we're used to seeing. So now we're going to take a step back and look at pictures where we're celebrating. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's really a police station? Because it looks like there's nurses and doctors.
Hospital.
It's a hospital. Yeah, it's a hospital with police. Okay. They're detaining him within the hospital. Yeah. So
good point.
And Leonard Freed was photographing during a time where people had small cameras and they were able to like discreetly take pictures and things like that. It was kind of like a street scene type of, we've looked at other photographers that were photographing in the same kind of social documentary way. So in this exhibition, it's all black and white photographs except for 3 photographs. We'll look at one of the 3, and they're all photographs from our collection. We were gifted I want to say over 100 photographs from a collector in New York of vernacular, which are just everyday, like pictures we would take on our cell phone or pictures we would take, you know, on your disposable camera in the 90s, and, you know, a bunch of vernacular photographs that show Black everyday life, people at proms, people at parties, people at the beach, that kind of thing. So that we'll get to that part of the exhibition, but that's kind of what a part of how this all came together on focusing on Black everyday life. We're going to start here.
Ooh.
So the exhibition is broken into 5 different categories. The first one being community. So this picture is in the community, but it could also be in other categories too. But this is one of the first pictures when you walk into the exhibition, and you might see it on buses or billboards or things like that. It's one of the showstoppers. It's stunning. It's about 14 or 15 inches by 15 inches, so pretty large. What jumps out at you?
It's posed.
Oh, you think it's posed? Okay. What makes you say that?
I think if our little boys getting a picture like that, they're gonna pose.
Yeah.
Oh, they pose themselves, like hamming it
Yes.
up. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Hamming
They're
it up.
definitely hamming it up. That is for sure.
Yes. And looks
I
like
see
they're having a good time.
Yeah. Happiness.
Happiness.
Yes.
What jumps out at you as happiness?
Miles,
The smiles and they don't look scared or anything. They just look as if they're having a good time.
You're exactly right, Yetta. They just look like any neighborhood kid you'd see, regardless of race. They just look like kids having fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've done this. We've looked at this photograph now probably 6 times in the last couple of weeks, and so it's always, I love hearing people's reactions to it. Or a lot of people think they can pick out the personalities of some of these kids. Everyone has agreed so far that this seems like the clown of the group, the one that's kind of the loud mouth, running his mouth, kind of the biggest ham of them all.
right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Mhm.
And that grin, I mean, it would just suck you right in. He is just so darling. And then others have thought that these 2 are a little more serious, probably the older ones in a bunch.
Yeah.
But can you tell where they're laying down?
They're on a sidewalk and on some grass.
Yep. And then it looks like a curb right
A
behind
curb,
them.
yeah, curb, yeah.
Yeah.
In front of their house, maybe.
Say that again.
In front of their house, maybe, or something.
Yeah, like probably in their neighborhood, probably. Yeah, I mean, and you can remember that as a child, you know, related experience where you're riding your bikes with the other kids in the neighborhood. I mean, the artwork is called Wheels. We don't see anything with wheels in it. So what thought do you have when you hear the title Wheels?
They're basically around the center, kind of spread
Yes.
out like a wheel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the actual composition of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
photograph.
Yeah, they're the hub and the wheels come out.
Okay.
I would expect to see a pile of bicycles next to them.
Okay. That's one of the common answers, like bikes or somewhere, like they just dropped their bikes and they're all kind of playing. Pinwheels has been another one because it feels like maybe a summer day where you're outside and
Yeah.
and
Maybe
then
they're just the big wheels of the neighborhood.
That's right.
Good, Phil.
but they're all happy thoughts. Everything you're saying is like a
Yes.
happy thought associated with it. It's a sense of closeness. If they are, you know, this is the wheel or they're the big wheels, then they're an important role together.
Bless you.
They all seem like they know each other. You know, we've been talking about, you don't pile up on people you don't know well, right? You don't, you're not all tangled up on people you're not familiar with. So there seems to be a closeness within these children, whether they're brothers or cousins or neighbors, they know each other. But the artist himself is Black, the photographer is Black, and we're seeing these children pretty comfortable in front of the camera. I mean, you know, think of some of your school pictures growing up when you're like awkwardly smiling and you're kind of a little rigid. We don't see any of that. So they must have a bit of a rapport or a bit of a comfortability with the photographer himself, who is Black. So this photographer is based out of Houston, and this photograph was taken in Houston in the 90s in a historically Black neighborhood in Houston. And this photographer gravitates towards photographs of children and of older seniors within these communities, the historically Black communities within Houston. So this is a very common theme for him. But it's just so beautifully done. The lighting, everything about it. And look, he's got like dirt all on him. I mean, if that isn't the definition of a group of boys, just summer, whatever, wreaking havoc in their little neighborhood of playing and running around and digging up dirt. But what's pretty significant about this, you know, we're seeing these kids as kids, where they're not, oftentimes we see children, Black children, with this adultification of Black children within the media. These are children who will probably be incarcerated later on. These are children who are only waiting to be older, and then something, you know, bad will happen with, you know, how their life plays out. Here, we're not seeing that. Here it is just purely, as you all pointed out, the joy of childhood. So he does a really good job of showing these children being children. And we need to remember that these Black children are children. They're not adults. So we are still going to stay in the community section, but we're going to shift gears to a different type of scenario with kids. So tell me
Fort Worth.
Say that again, Martha.
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. So this was a white photographer who was welcomed into different Black communities within Fort Worth. While this is, you know, a public area, this is a private organization. And Furstein was welcomed in and was allowed to take pictures of these different things that were happening. Some of them were in church services. This is a June 16th, Juneteenth event where she was being crowned, and he's up close and personal. These are not posed at all. But we're seeing part of the everyday, you know, facets and organizations that these Black communities have. This is in Fort Worth, but they exist everywhere in the country. So think of different organizations you know you're a part of. You know, your church, the Y. There we have some photographs of barber shops on our wall in this exhibition. So different places where you connect with people you relate to. And this is, there are several pictures from this photographer depicting these private events that show the community within the Black neighborhoods, you know, here in Fort Worth, but elsewhere.
Oh, I wonder what those trophies are for.
I think it's some sort of like beauty pageant that is that's happening, and she's being crowned, but these might be the runner-ups that are there.
Okay.
It looks like it's outside.
Yep.
He's at an interesting angle. Can you see how we're, you know, looking up at the action?
Yeah.
So he might be, you know, and that takes a lot to welcome a lot of trust to welcome somebody in on something that's, you know, a closed event. Typically, you know, this kind of thing is for that particular organization, and let them photograph the event. You know, you wouldn't, necessarily just have, oh, this is a friend of mine come in, or, one of you might know the photographer a little bit and let them take a picture of the party for a first Holy Communion, or, some sort of ceremony that's private within your group of close people. So that's pretty cool that he was able to capture these moments. But again, signifying that these, Black communities have established organizations. It's not, there's complexities within these communities that aren't just, oh, they live in this neighborhood. It's no, they have like deep rooted traditions and organizations where they come together and they share and they deepen their faith or their connections or whatever. And so this particular photographer taught at TCC for like 30 years, something like that. And the other pictures that are, it's not necessarily in a series, but that he took are from stockyards, from church events, groups of bikers that were in the community. So kind of covering all different areas where you have social gathering.
Ferriston is the photographer.
Yes. Yeah. So there's another group, which I'm not showing you any photographs from, called Labor, and talking about how there are pictures of, in that particular section, of Black men in military uniform, because a lot of times if Black men couldn't find a job, they could enlist in the military. There is a picture of, and it's not dwelled upon, but a picture of incarcerated men picking up trash, I believe it is, but doing something that almost looks like they're picking cotton. So there is that similarity, making the comment of the loophole to enslavement was incarceration in the United States. And so a comment on that. But I don't have any pictures of the labor. So the next section is family. So there's a ton of really cool pictures. Some pictures we've even talked about in the past in this group are on the wall. So it's cool to finally see them in real life and not just a digital recreation of them. But this portrait is a showstopper. It's on the family wall, and I'm giving you for scale. This is a terrible picture, but it's massive. And this is one of the 3 color photographs in the exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
So what jumps out at you?
Looks like they're in swimsuits or out swimwear, and maybe there's a pool somewhere.
Yeah, so they're in their bathing suits.
And the mother is showing off her artificial.
Yes.
Yes, she is. And you can see the prosthetic has painted toes. So she keeps her foot looking fresh. But yeah, we can very obviously see her prosthetic leg. What about their poses? How close they are to each other? Do they seem like there's a closeness? They don't know each other. What kind of relationship do you sense?
Well, I think they're very close, actually.
Probably mother-daughter.
Yeah.
The title is what is it?
It is
Barbara and Mother. So we know, and it's like mother, like daughter. They've got the same pose.
Mm-hmm.
Down and the hip popped. It's like they're almost like little mirrors of each other. And what else do you know? Okay, so we noticed they're in their bathing suits. We noticed their closeness. We noticed the prosthetic leg, which is, in portraiture, we don't typically, in most artwork, we don't typically see somebody with a physical disability. So this is, something that is different in and of itself. But we notice, where are they?
It's like they're in a living room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like the Febreze in the Bible.
Yeah, right there on the table.
Keeping it fresh for God,
Yeah.
That's right.
Ooh.
And the big fan that
And the big fan.
probably cools her off.
And
Whoever sits in the chair off. Yeah.
And the music.
The music, yeah.
Music, that's right.
Radio, stereo. Mm-hmm.
And we've got, these are like Xbox games. So we've got like,
Yes, as I saw that, yes.
Pride of place is their electronics.
Yeah.
It takes up a lion's share of the room.
Mhm.
I noticed that they still have the plastic on their lampshade.
Yep.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I know. It looks dusty to me too, which to me it would just be like allergy attack.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
noticed that-
flowers. So somebody cares about beauty.
Yes, that's a really good point, Martha. That's a very good detail. So there's a sense of beautiful, wanting to make their space feel beautiful,
Mhm.
including those flowers. This is in Brooklyn. The photographer is also a Black woman herself, and she's always very interested in family dynamic. That was, she does a lot of photographs of people she doesn't know, but of people who are family. So these are two women she didn't know until, this came about. But we learned so much about these people from this portrait in their space, which, historically portraits offer, they might be holding a book that they love, or an animal that they love, or in a dress color that color means a lot to them. So, it's true to the history of portraiture, where we know a thing or two about Barbara and her mother.
And they're both in black and white.
Yep, they
Mhm.
are. And bold patterns too. I mean, they're
Yes.
not wallflowers. They're
No.
popping with that zebra print. I mean, like, you'll notice zebra print when that walks in.
That's right.
The plaque by the Bible, I wonder if that commemorates why she has the prosthetic leg.
It says high school on it, so my hunch is
Okay,
no.
because I can't, it's in
It's
this
too
view, I
tiny.
can't see.
Yeah, it says, I think it's some sort of high school award.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't know how, at least that information is not readily available, of how she did lose her leg. But there's a self-awareness of it. I mean, the prosthetic is black too, which we were having this conversation when we were looking at the artwork initially. We see the little boy has a cream, a white person Band-Aid on their arm, which now they're making Band-Aids that match different complexions for darker complected people. And here her prosthetic matches her skin. I mean, skin color is important, when you want to try, you have a self-awareness, or you might want to conceal something. Those are things white people might not always need to think about, because those colors are always very readily available for healing. But the size of the portrait itself is huge. And so, and it's plated, or that's framed with gold leaf.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, it's putting a lot of, kind of like the portrait we looked at a few weeks ago of the woman who was wearing the phrenology tool on her head as a tiara. And it's a massive, larger than life portrait. I mean, this is putting them again with that loyalty of larger portraits means a larger presence, which means a more important presence. So it's pretty cool to have a portrait of a Black person, of Black people this large, doing their everyday life. I mean, celebrating their everyday life and what their world looks like. So that's a can't miss in the exhibition, and you can see it's massive.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then we have a wall of excellence. And so
Abaddon.
there is probably, I want to say, like 15-ish portraits of the ones you would expect. George Washington Carver, portrait of Martin Luther King. But there are portraits of other Black Americans who are important in the history of America in terms of what they've contributed to academics, and what they've contributed to art and cinematic performances, theater, dancers, other people who have just contributed, but we don't often learn about them in school, or we don't celebrate them on particular days. So this was kind of a nod to all of the Black Americans that are the names we don't always study. And so here is a photograph by Richard Avedon, which everyone knows who Richard Avedon is, the photographer out of New York who photographed celebrities, and then he had the massive exhibition here for American West. But he took it of Marian Anderson. Does anyone know who she is?
She was a performer, American, a musician,
Yes, she was.
and she was a singer who performed anything from opera to spirit.
Yes, she was very well known for her opera performances. And she was refused the right to perform at a, what is it, the Daughters of the American Revolution in the Constitution Hall because she was Black. And so she stood then on the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial and put on a performance in front of 75,000 people. And she opened up with the song, My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Ooh, powerful.
Yeah.
She performed on the hall with the support of Eleanor Roosevelt and her husband, Franklin Roosevelt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially Eleanor.
And so she was the first Black singer to perform at the Metropolitan Opera in 1963. And she sang at different marches in DC. She has done things in support of Martin Luther King. So she really made a name for herself. But I don't remember learning anything about her in school, but she was important. She was doing very important things in her day and making, the first Black performer at the Met. That's amazing. So anyway, here in this stunning portrait, Avedon catches her mid vocal, her hair blowing. It's just a beautiful portrait.
She was the first person to receive a Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Oh, how
in
cool.
1963.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. And she was very instrumental in the civil rights movement.
Yeah. She aligned with a lot of the civil rights activists of the day.
She was the United Nations Human Rights Committee and a United States Department of State Goodwill Ambassador. So she was very important.
Very important.
Yeah. Beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm. So the last section is the vernacular area, where it's essentially, if someone were to find your shoebox of photographs of your family from over the years, this is the type of photographs that are on the wall, and they're displayed very closely knit together. And here are just two examples of the bunch that could be in any one of your homes that you probably have a similar memory of. Either your mom holding you and your brothers and sisters, or you or your wife or you holding, and the kids are all around. And then this beach picture, I just giggled. Look at the baby's sunglasses. Like, the more people you introduce into a picture, it's going to get kookier or whatever. So it just, look, of course, we've got one kid with their eyes closed, one kid's not paying attention over here. It's just, how relatable is this, regardless of race? This is just life. This is just how we live our lives, regardless of where you're from or your ethnic background. It doesn't matter. These are the memories that make up your life.
The top left one is they're all dressed up, so they're going either to church or some very more important event.
Right. It feels very wintry. They've all got, she's got winter coat and a hat. And then it looks kind of like a reindeer situation with the snowflakes.
Probably Christmas.
Yeah, around Christmas.
The mother is very proud.
Yes, she is.
And she's happy too.
Yeah.
And the curatorial team made a very concerted decision to say the artist is unknown. A lot of times you'll see unidentified. But in these instances, people knew who was taking the picture. This was probably a husband or a sister, an aunt and uncle or somebody taking their picture. So those people in the picture knew who that artist was. We just don't know who those artists are. They're not unidentified. They're just unknown to us. Same thing down here. Someone took that Polaroid, and think of the Polaroid you have where just the day at the beach, and then the youngest is 3 months old. Just the little notes you make on the back of photographs when people used to print photographs,
Mhm.
just as kind of the reminder of whatever that event was.
Beautiful pictures.
They really are. And
Yeah,
there's so many to look at. I mean, again, I'm only showing you 2 of the hundreds, but it's just nostalgic feeling, and it's not about race, it's about life.
Mhm.
So I really encourage you to visit the museum if you can. This will be up through the summer. It's a really moving and wonderful show, and a lot of very interesting information. And it's white artists and Black artists, but really it's capturing the Black life in America. And so it's very powerful. So you can also read more about it on our website as well if this exhibition is of interest to you.
And
So-
also take a look at some of the artists that we saw today and look them up. They all have wonderful art on Google.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
There's some phenomenal photographers in this exhibition. So next week we have our special guest from Italy, Barbara, and we are going to look at fruit. So
what?
I will have 2 in my
Fruit.
collection. She'll have
Fruit?
fruit, yeah.
Fruit.
Groot. Oh, I thought you said Groot, like the Guardians of the Galaxy.
No. We're keeping it food.
Fruit.
But she has some really cool stuff and a video, and so I'll do some talking, but I'm going to turn it over to Barbara so you guys will get to hear about the artworks from her collection.
Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds fun.
Thank you, Becky.
All
Thank
right,
you
so
very much,
guys, have
Becky.
a really good weekend, and I will.
All right.
Thank you too. Happy
All
4th.
right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Happy 4th of
oh,
July.
yeah, happy 4th. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you,
Farewell.
Pam.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Well, before we stop for Fifth Street Cafe, let's take a look at what's coming up.
Okay, let's see.
If Martha can get her acting together. You know, some days it's better than others. Oh, that's it. Okay. Share that screen, girlfriend.
Okay, do it.
Okay. Here is Black Every Day that we just looked at. 11:30 today is Tony Talos and his wonderful piano. We all love Tony. And at 1:30, Nia Moving to Heal with Emily. If any of you have not seen Emily since she came back from her Glorietta adventure, she may be showing us some more pictures. I got to see a snippet of some art yesterday, and it was fabulous. You never know what Emily's going to bring.
That's
No,
right.
no.
And then tomorrow, TCU Frog Bingo all
Right.
day.
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Frog bingo.
Yes. And since today's the 29th, tomorrow is the 30th. So this will be the final for all 3 bingo programs. So get your little daubers ready. We're going to have some winners tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And let me stop the recording and we'll move on to Fifth Street Cafe.